7 lies that we were all lied to at school. Hi everyone, I'm your host. You know when your teacher said the earth is round and you believed them? Well, they may have lied to you. Here are 7 things we were all lied to at school. Ancient Greek and Roman statues were actually brilliantly colored.
Oh.
Today, if you visit a museum to see the world-famous ancient sculptures, you will notice something peculiar. Almost all of them are bare marble or stone. They have no color. The truth is that these statues were in fact brilliantly colored, but the colors have just worn off due to the natural weathering of marble. This also extends to the Mona Lisa. Historians believed that she wore a veil over her head, which was lost during the turbulent French Revolution. However, experts now think she would not have been wearing a veil because it simply wasn't fashionable at the time. If this is true, then she may have actually been wearing a colorful hat. Christopher Columbus discovered America. Let us tell you another one. Okay, here's one we're definitely going to get some comments about. Christopher Columbus did not discover the Americas. He was actually a notorious liar, and he greatly exaggerated his findings. He claimed he had reached India, but he actually reached North America. Columbus didn't realize this, though. He even went so far as to name the natives Indians because he thought he was in India. Leif Erikson was the first European to set foot on continental America around 500 years before Columbus arrived. So next time your teacher tells you that Columbus discovered America, don't be afraid to raise your hand and let them know that that's not entirely correct. Abraham Lincoln was honest, Abe. Abraham Lincoln was a great president. He helped abolish slavery in the United States. But was he honest? Well, no. Honest Abe was actually a skilled manipulator who understood the art of lying for the greater good. In 1838, Lincoln successfully blamed an incident of vandalism on an innocent man in order to protect his friend from losing his job. He also lied about having been a hatter before entering politics, despite having zero experience in the field. Ancient Egyptian writing was a secret code. Have you ever heard the story of how Napoleon stumbled upon the Rosetta Stone and how this led to the deciphering of hieroglyphs? Well, there's a little bit of a problem with that story. For one thing, the Rosetta Stone has always been marked with hieroglyphics, Greek and Demotic script. It was never a secret code as such, but a decree written in 3 different scripts for maximum effect. However, many people, including Napoleon, believed it was a secret code. As for deciphering the language, it was actually Thomas Young, a British polymath, who first deciphered the script. Not Napoleon's team of scholars as popularly believed. We were lied to about the American Civil War. The American Civil War was fought over states' rights. At least that's what we were taught. But in reality, the war was fought over slavery. Don't let anyone lie to you. The issue of slavery was so important that Abraham Lincoln included its abolition in his famous Gettysburg Address. And when the Confederacy was established, they made it clear that the new nation was founded on the idea of white supremacy and the institution of slavery. So forget anyone who says the Civil War wasn't about slavery. Diamonds are forever. This one's pretty crazy. When the De Beers Company launched its hugely successful advertising campaign in 1948, "Diamond is forever," it caused quite a stir. The slogan implied that diamonds were rare and eternal, but it was actually a clever marketing ploy. Diamonds are actually quite common, and they aren't rare at all. They're often found in large mines. Instead of being eternal, they can actually be destroyed with a powerful enough explosion. So next time someone tries to sell you diamonds, remember, they may not be as valuable as you think. Ancient Rome was a dirty city. Did you know that Emperor Nero passed laws prohibiting public nudity and indecent behavior? Of course, these laws weren't very effective, but the point is that ancient Rome was not as filthy as you might expect. Sure, it probably smelled like sewage and garbage, but it was by no means dirtier than modern New York or London. In fact, Rome had running water in public bathrooms. This makes it far cleaner than most cities of the time. So next time your teacher describes ancient Rome as dirty and smelly, be sure to let them know that it really wasn't all that bad. Christopher Columbus was actually an Italian explorer. Not only did he not discover America, but he wasn't even Portuguese. He was actually born in Genoa, Italy. He just fancied himself a bit of an adventurer, so he set out to sea to find new lands. Ancient Thebes was ruled by 2 kings. Now this one's crazy. We were all taught that ancient Thebes was ruled by 2 kings, Echion and his brother Amphio, but it turns out that was a lie. In fact, there was no king of Thebes during the period in which the legendary heroes lived. In all likelihood, the myth of the Seven Kings of Thebes is nothing more than a later invention by historians trying to make sense of the ancient city's history. Ancient Greek and Roman buildings were built without mortar. The Colosseum and the Parthenon are two of the most famous buildings in human history. What do they have in common? Both were constructed without the use of mortar. Instead, the stones were fitted together so precisely that they could withstand the test of time. Of course, both structures eventually fell into disrepair. But that was due to earthquakes and neglect, not because the builders ran out of mortar. The dildo was invented in the Victorian era. There's no way this one's true. Dildo has been around since the Stone Age. In fact, archaeologists have unearthed several primitive dildos from various digs around the world. One dildo was even found in King Tut's tomb, suggesting that the pharaohs were well aware of their importance. Ancient Greek and Roman statues were actually really detailed. Many of the ancient Greek and Roman statues that we admire today are missing their limbs. However, this is because they were melted down during the Middle Ages to be used in other works. The molten statues were so in demand that entire workshops sprang up across Europe devoted to nothing but turning old statues into new ones. This explains why so many famous statues are missing their heads or arms. They were literally chopped off, so that someone else could make money from them. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone.
Alexander Graham Bell is credited with inventing the telephone, but that's actually not true.
Antonio Meucci was the first person to invent the telephone, but he was too poor to file a patent. This allowed Graham Bell to steal his idea and become famous for inventing the telephone. Christopher Columbus sailed with the Vikings. Now, this one's really strange. Most people believe that Christopher Columbus sailed alone in his quest to find new lands, but that's not true. In fact, he sailed with a fleet of ships. Fortunately, most of these ships and their crews were lost in the storm, leaving only one ship, the Santa Maria, and a handful of survivors. This is why Columbus is considered one of the worst navigators in history. Ancient Rome was much smaller than modern Rome. Most people assume that ancient Rome was as big as modern Rome, but that's not true. In fact, it was much smaller. Ancient Rome only covered about 110 acres, while modern Rome covers over 1,000 acres. This means that ancient Rome was less than 1/10 the size of modern Rome. And that's the end of part 2. Did you learn anything new? Which facts were you lied to about? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching.